The grand summer gala was the epitome of elegance, every detail meticulously arranged to present a flawless image of success and happiness. The chandeliers sparkled like stars, casting shimmering light on the polished marble floors, and the laughter flowed freely, buoyed by the champagne that brightened cheeks and blurred judgment. From the outside, it was the perfect life, one that many envied, and few understood was merely a facade held together by polite smiles and whispering secrets. As Mia surveyed the room, she felt the weight of the illusion bearing down on her. Glimmering gowns swirled through the crowd, each fabric more exquisite than the last, yet all she could think of was the fabric of her own life unraveling at the seams. She had always played the part of the devoted wife, albeit a role that now felt more like a prison than a sanctuary. Between the laughter and the charm, Mia's heart raced, not with excitement, but trepidation. Each laugh that floated past her felt like a reminder of the betrayal hidden behind closed doors, a truth cloaked in the glitter of high society's expectations. But beneath the perfectly lacquered surface lay a storm brewing, unseen yet palpable, bubbling under the tension of imperfect relationships, whispered half-truths, and stolen glances that held untold stories. Her thoughts drifted back to last summer's gala, when Alex had looked at her with such adoration that she had felt invincible. His touching embrace hadn't just been a simple show for the guests. It had been the moment she thought they had conquered the shadows that threatened to encroach upon their lives. Little did she know then that love could be as deceitful as it was beautiful. Mia caught sight of Alex across the room, enveloped in conversation with a strikingly familiar figure. It was Jennifer, his ex, the specter of Mia's nightmares come to life. As if summoned by some magnetic force, her presence unveiled the areas of Mia's heart still raw and bleeding from a wound that had yet to heal. A quickening pulse stirred within her, a mix of anger, fear, and a smidgen of determination. All those years, she had lived beneath the shadow of this woman's memory, haunted by the ghost of their unfinished love that felt so oppressively real. Yet at this moment, it was not just her husband's lost affection that stung. It was the understanding that at any moment her perfect life could shatter. Watching them from the periphery, she remembered the early years, when laughter filled every corner of their home and assurance wrapped around her like a warm embrace. It had been too easy to believe that their love was impenetrable, yet in this moment of bitter clarity, she realized that their life was built on fragile foundations. They had lost sight of each other amidst the chaos of ambition and pretense, and instead, Alex had warmed to the intoxicating nostalgia of a past that beckoned with its promise of simpler times, free from the complications of their adult realities. The revelation marinated like a fine wine, turning bitter as it slid down her throat. Their love story was one wrought with expectation, high society's relentless demands shaping their identities into reflections of what was pleasing to others, as if their happiness depended on the approval of friends and family who couldn't see the cracks forming under the sheen. A desperate need to maintain appearances wove an ever tighter noose around Mia's heart, squeezing until the breath hissed through her gritted teeth. With a sudden flourish, Alex broke into laughter, a sound that had once inspired joy, now carving deeper into her heart. She felt invisible, stripped of her identity amidst the fancy dresses and idle chatter, flanked by the shadows of his past and her present. Breathlessly, she wondered if anyone else could detect the storm brewing within her, a tempest growing stronger, fueled by betrayal and self-discovery. For the first time, vulnerability transformed from a weakness into a weapon, igniting in her the most unconventional of resolutions. If the facade of their perfect life was crumbling, then she would become the architect of its reconstruction. Every interaction now had new meaning. Each perfunctory compliment felt like another nail in the coffin of their happiness. Every laugh shared like a bittersweet reminder of the love that was once theirs alone. But what if she used this moment to shift the narrative? What if instead of burying herself in sorrow, she sought to gain control over the very things meant to destroy her? The seeds of a plan, a secret strategy concocted in the shadows of betrayal, began to unfurl within her mind. Twisting her delicate wrist, Mia flashed a smile, one that gleamed with potential, a hint of mischief nestled within her dark eyes. The time for passive acceptance was over. She would no longer allow the whirlwind of their lives to sweep her along helplessly. As she broke away from the thrumming crowd, she began to strategize her battlefield, buoyed by the intoxicating anticipation of reclaiming her life from the clutches of lost dreams. What was once a broken heart would now serve as the catalyst for a remarkable transformation. With the shadows gathering around her, she could almost feel the energy crackling like static in the air, a promise of the upheaval to come. This facade of perfection would soon unravel, and as the threads slipped away one by one, they would reveal the truth buried beneath the glittering chaos of their high society lives. Mia's heart raced with a determination fueled by love, betrayal, and an insatiable hunger for retribution. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was becoming abundantly clear. No longer would she merely be a player in this game. She would take the reins, commanding the narrative that had tried to envelop her. The stakes had never been higher, and the time to act was now. The air felt thicker that morning as I navigated the marble halls of our sprawling estate, sunlight streaming through the gilded windows, casting long, deceitful shadows that danced across the polished floors. My heart thrummed with anxiety, an echo of the turmoil tearing through my insides as I reveled in the luxury that had, until recently, felt unassailable. It was on the crisp edge of dawn when I first noticed it, the subtle shifting of energies, like the hushed whispers of secrets being exchanged in the dark corners of our lives, cloaked in the guise of normalcy. What was meant to be an ordinary Tuesday became the turning point in a narrative I never thought I would find myself entwined in. I had spent the previous evening watching him preparing for a business trip to an exclusive destination, a strategically timed escape that I thought nothing of at first. Yet my instincts screamed for attention, each little detail soon scrutinized under the harsh light of suspicion. As much as I tried to ignore the gnawing doubts, they slithered into my mind, each instance woven together into a tapestry of betrayal that I was only beginning to unravel. The unmistakable sound of foreign laughter kissed the air, snapping me back to reality. I moved closer to the heavy oak door, my heart racing as I strained to listen. It was a voice so familiar it sent chills down my spine, yet distant enough that I questioned if my imagination was running rampant, fueled by paranoia. There it was again, the lilting tone of his ex-wife, a woman I had never truly considered a tangible threat. However, reality ousted my calm just as easily as belief had weaved her back into our world. The realization struck me like thunder, resonating through the fabric of my life. The soft affection in their exchanges, that undercurrent of shared history, it burned with a flaring intensity that I had foolishly underestimated. With each word spoken, my mind spiraled into chaos, chasing after memories that felt hauntingly real, a flashback of idyllic vacations where we, a perfect facade of a happy couple, had smiled across candlelit tables as strangers on the outside envied our loving dynamism. But now, in this chilling moment, I recognized something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface. I could see echoes of their past entwined with the careless laugh that mingled with the morning breeze. A past I had thought had been firmly closed. As I pressed my back against the cold doorframe, the walls around me seemed to pulse with memories of a life that began to feel foreign. And then it happened, a sound that twisted the knife deeper into my gut. The sharpness of a kiss, vibrant and electric, reached through the barrier of the door and settled in my chest like molten lead. The life we had built together, my dreams of us against the world, crumbled as I stood there, wrapped in disbelief, my breath hitching in my throat. I turned, the echo of that betrayal lingered, tasting bitter, coating my tongue with the salt of my tears. In the stillness that engulfed me, I made the fatal miscalculation of clinging to denial. What if I was wrong? What if all of this was just my imagination spiraling out of control? Uncertainty clawed at my insides, and as I gathered myself for a second, desperate attempt to grasp reality, I thought about the consequences of what might lie ahead. I pushed the door slightly ajar, peering into the absolute destruction of my marriage, leaning into his past, a chamomile-scented memory I could never erase as it overshadowed everything I thought we were building. Laughter spilled over into the morning light, a cruel juxtaposition to the pit brewing in my stomach. Do you remember that summer in Saint-Tropez? Her teasing voice rang out, familiar and melodic, like a treacherous song luring me to my doom. My world came crashing around me with each passing moment in which they shared their memories, blanketing our home with echoes of affection I had only ever known from the outside. It was an unbearable and wretched thing, a fated moment that would redefine my understanding of love and loyalty. That evening, like a dam had broken, everything spilled out. An innocent question about our dinner plans exposed the lengths to which I had gone to suppress the ominous truths festering just beneath the surface. As lies slipped from his lips, crafted to hide the truth, the inescapable feeling surged that I was no longer in control of the life I once thought was mine. I watched his eyes, searching for any hint of remorse, but found none. An emptiness sat where love should have flourished, hollow and cruel, an abyss from which there was no retreat. No longer was this the home I cherished, but a battleground laced with the remnants of unspoken grievances, choking back bitterness and resentment. The last shred of innocence I clung to shattered, reverberating into the silent boundaries of my heart. Betrayal had etched itself intricately into the fibers of my existence, and I could feel the tide shifting beneath my feet, threatening to drown me in its currents. The world I knew transformed into a shadow of itself, tainted by lies I could no longer ignore. I could see the path laid out before me, tendrils of a secret plot unfurling in my mind as determination took root amidst the despair. He might have chosen to dance with the ghosts of his past, but I was far from willing to let them claim me too. A storm brewed inside of me, fueled by heartache entwined with vengeance as I meticulously began crafting a plan that served not just as a bulletproof shield, but as a powerful weapon against the very man who had taught me the meaning of love and betrayal in the same breath. One day he would realize the depths of his folly. One day I would reclaim my power. The walls felt as if they were closing in, the air thick with unspoken words and the weight of betrayal. I stood in the middle of the elegant room, each crystal chandelier casting jagged reflections on the polished marble floor, remnants of the life I thought I knew. My heart, once a fortress, now lay in ruins, shattered by the revelation that my husband had not simply strayed, but had run away with the very specter of my past, his ex, the one who swirled around our lives like a ghost, haunting every joyous occasion, every intimate moment. It felt almost surreal, the way betrayal can transform the world into a shadow of itself, a whisper of its former glory. I had loved him fiercely. Each laugh shared, every promise exchanged, wrapped us in a cocoon of bliss that I'd believed was impermeable. But I was wrong. Love, I learned, is not a shield, it is a gamble, one that can be lost in an instant. I had watched that negligent spark flicker in his eyes, the way he'd light up at the mere mention of her name. It had always been there, just beneath the surface, festering like a wound. The heart wants what it desires, and it seemed his heart had desired her, despite the life we built together. But as I crumbled beneath the emotional wreckage, a different part of me began to stir, a resolve birthed from the ashes of heartbreak. In that moment of despair, a plan began to take shape in the shadows of my mind. I would not be a mere victim in this narrative. I would reclaim my story one act at a time. With the hunger of betrayal fueling me, I would orchestrate a counteroffensive, driven not just by revenge, but by the wisdom that arose from my suffering. As I sat at my oversized desk, adorned with more aspirations and dreams than tangible successes, I began to write. My thoughts flowed like ink, a mixture of intellect and emotion. My plan required subtlety and finesse, a dance through the halls of high society where whispers of scandal could reach the ears of the most powerful. I thought of her, his ex, so artful, so cunning. She tumbled through life like a mesmerizing flame, but flames can be controlled, can be extinguished if one knows the right moves. It was time to put the pieces in place. I would leverage what I had learned over years of attending galas and soirees, building connections fueled by champagne and gossip. I needed an ally in this game, someone who had seen the ugly underbelly of our privileged lives. Realizing I had an old friend, someone skilled in the art of information, I picked up the phone. My voice carried with it an urgency, a newfound determination. I made my intentions clear, painting a picture that would secure the loyalty I required for my scheme to flourish. In this world of privilege, people were motivated by their own desires. All I needed to do was ensure my desires were aligned with theirs. Each reconnection fortified our alliance, threading together a fabric of support and strategy. As days morphed into weeks, I gathered pieces of information, watching, listening, an unseen predator cloaked in the guise of the forgotten wife. I learned about the glamorous brunches where her laughter rang the loudest, where my husband dared to play perfect gentleman, pretending to serve whisked eggs and delicate pastries while my heart rotted beneath their hollow exchanges. With every morsel I feasted upon, I crafted my brand of sweet revenge. It would be subtle, a slow poison, a mere breath of scandal that could turn lives upside down, a strategic lake that would poison their paradise. It was the kind of long game that required patience, but I had been sharpened by despair. My plan had layers, interwoven with perfect espionage, and I couldn't help but relish the prospect of watching my husband realize that the flames he'd so foolishly fanned would consume him too. I recalled the passion we once nurtured, now twisted into something darker, a means to an end. It was all tangled and complicated, this bond we had shared. Yet, as I thumbed through memories of our better days, I also felt a sense of liberation. I would become the architect of my own narrative. What I planned to unleash was not mere vengeance, it was liberation from the shackles of love that had become a cage, imprisoning me in despair. I thought of the high society cliques that ruled this city, the echoes of laughter at their lavish parties, the insatiable hunger for gossip that could tear friendships apart. And then there was my heart, a once tender instrument of feeling, now forged into a vessel of resolve. I would not be a mere pawn in their game. The facade they presented would soon crumble before the polished veneer of their lives. I could feel the rush of impending victory course through me, an intoxicating blend of thrill and clarity. With each calculated move, I invited chaos into their lives, awakening the sleeping tiger of jealousy and competition within the lavish circle of friends who thought themselves above reproach. The stage was being set for tragedy to unfold. Hearts would shatter, allegiances would be tested, and I would emerge stronger, cloaked in the shadows of my past. Love had once ignited my spirit, but betrayal had set my course toward reclamation. Beneath the pain whispered a promise of rebirth, freedom through manipulation, clarity through chaos. Each day I endeavored to shatter the perfect illusion he had spun around his new life, and I would not stop until the ultimate truth rose to the surface. In the echoing halls where once I danced joyfully, I now plotted with cold precision, ready to reclaim my power from the ashes of desolation. In the depths of heartbreak, I found my resolve, and in that darkness, I discovered the map to my redemption. It was time for the world to see that I was more than a desperate wife, I was a force to be reckoned with. Unbeknownst to most, the plush interior of Keller's bookshop had witnessed countless whispered secrets and shattered dreams. Beneath its amber lights and the intoxicating scent of aged paper, two women who had once called each other friends now stood on the precipice of an unlikely alliance. Their shared resentment hung in the air, a palpable force that seemed to draw them together in a web of common purpose. Outside, the rain drummed insistently against the glass, mirroring the urgency of their clandestine meeting. "You realize we're doing something dangerous, right?" One of them finally spoke, her voice a jagged whisper, as though the walls themselves could betray their intentions. "Trusting each other might be the riskiest gamble we'll ever take." "Sometimes the only option left is to embrace the chaos," the other replied, her expression a stark mask of determination. "We've been betrayed in ways I never thought possible by those we thought would always have our backs." The flickering candlelight cast shadows on their faces, reflecting the tumult within their hearts. It was impossible to ignore the hurt that lingered beneath the surface. They recalled their shared laughter, the endless brunches spiced with blend of aspirations and secrets exchanged like currency. But betrayal had wrenched their bond apart like thunder splitting the sky, leaving only jagged echoes of a friendship long gone. "Tell me how you plan to handle it," the first woman urged, her voice thick with the weight of desperation, the storm outside matching the turmoil within. "I want to know everything, every detail." A smile, dark and cunning, played fleetingly across the other's lips. I've spent too long living in shadows, watching them recreate the perfect life that I helped build. What they don't realize is that the foundation of that life is built on lies, and I have the blueprints. As she spoke, her mind raced through the memories of her perfect marriage, enshrined in a glass case of societal expectations. It had all seemed so pristine, so enviable, until the fractures began to appear. Revealing the truth about the affair with his ex, the very woman who had once been a sister to her, was necessary. But it wasn't enough merely to expose them. They had to feel the weight of their choices, the sorrow of their betrayal. In that malice rested a newfound liberation. I need you, the first woman admitted, letting down her guard just enough to let a sliver of vulnerability escape. We can't let them win. You have connections, and I know the gossip mill better than anyone, she continued, determination flaring in her chest. We can gather evidence, catch them in the act. They need to understand the consequences of their actions. Evidence, yes, the other nodded, her mind racing ahead. But not just any evidence. We need something that would shake the foundations of their precious lives, something that will close the door on any chance of redemption. A tense silence filled the air, filled not with the dread of uncertainty, but the spark of something dangerously intoxicating, a semblance of hope coiling around impossible schemes. What about the gala? The first woman suggested, a glint of mischief in her eye, the perfect opportunity to unveil the lies and reveal their true colors for all to see. The gala, the other mused, her breath hitching in the exhilarating rush of plotting revenge. A month away. We can masquerade as the perfect guests, but beneath the sparkle and the chatter, we will sow the seeds of truth. By the time they realize what's happening, it will be too late. Their plans coalesced like storm clouds brewing on the horizon, a sense of palpable power surging between them. The two women knew they had to tread carefully, for the stakes were unprecedentedly high. Every move needed to be precise, and their actions orchestrated to unveil the treachery hidden behind the veils of loyalty and love. Are you prepared for the fallout? The first questioned, concern threading through her voice. It could destroy everything. Everything is already in ruins, the other countered fiercely. There's nothing left to lose. The storm outside intensified, but the tempest that brewed within them offered a bittersweet thrill of creation. They were no longer the victims of this cruel game. They had become players, willing participants in a strategy that promised to unearth the truth entwined in layers of deceit. As they stood amidst the shelves brimming with stories yet untold, a quiet understanding passed between them. They may have been thrust into this dark alliance by betrayal, but it was in this shared pain that they found purpose. Together, they held the power to rewrite their narratives. I'll see you at the gala then, the first woman murmured, her heart racing with each word. Count on it, the other replied. And just like that, amidst the chaos that enveloped them, hope ignited. A secret alliance formed not only from resentment, but from a shared vision of reclamation and revenge. Little did they know, the whispers of their alliance would soon ripple through the high society circles they once believed they could never infiltrate. As shadows ebbed and flowed with the promise of vengeance, the stage was set for a confrontation that would unravel the very fabric of their world. The evening sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting a golden hue over the sprawling garden party that was the highlight of the season. Laughter floated through the air, mingling with the lilting melodies of a string quartet, but beneath the surface, an undercurrent of tension thrummed like a taut bowstring ready to snap. I watched from the terrace, the delicate champagne flute cradled in my fingers, as the high society elite swarmed like moths drawn to a flickering flame. I should have felt at ease amidst such opulence, but since my world shattered with the news of my husband's betrayal, I felt like an imposter in my own life. In the midst of laughter and clinking glasses stood Claire, the very specter of my marital collapse, uninvited yet impossible to ignore. She floated through the crowd with an effortless grace, her laughter ringing out like a siren's call, ensnaring the attention of every man and woman present. Dressed in a gown that shimmered like sunlight on water, she exuded the type of confidence that only a woman who believes she has the upper hand could possess. I could see it the way she looked at him, her eyes sparkling with a kind of wicked delight that a cat must feel as it toys with a mouse. My grip tightened around the flute as memories surged forth, each one slicing through my calm facade like shards of glass. How naive I had been, believing my love was enough to ward off the specter of his past. The taped version of love they had shared danced in my mind, a bittersweet recollection of what was before I had stepped in, before I had given him a life that sparkled with security and promise, but one he had now bargained away. Any notion I had of being polite and composed before my guests shattered as I caught a glimpse of my husband's smile directed at Claire. It was a smile I thought belonged to me, a touch of warmth that had been my sanctuary in our shared life. Watching it now was like being plunged into icy waters, the shock of the truth rooting me to my spot on the terrace. No longer did he bear the weight of my expectations. He was light and free, reveling in the attention that Claire lavished upon him. Just moments before, we had been entwined in that perfect life, at least, I'd thought we were. But this was not just social cruelty. This was survival in a world where secrets roamed as freely as the bubbles that formed in my champagne. I had long since learned that in high society, one's worth was a currency measured not just in wealth but in emotional leverage. And oh, how I had spent those final weeks gathering coins of my own. I was no longer the wounded wife hiding in the shadows. I was an architect of my destiny, poised to reclaim the narrative of my life. I felt a presence beside me, a familiar figure threaded with her own complexities, my friend Melissa, her brow furrowed with concern as she caught sight of the tempest brewing within me. Her eyes darted to Claire and back to me, and I knew we would speak without sharing words. They would have to see me now, standing confidently, commanding the attention that had unwittingly been reclaimed from the breathless whispers of other women in their silk gowns and fresh paint. "Aren't you going to join them?" She whispered, an edge of urgency threading her tone. "I'd rather not," I replied, forcing a smile despite the tightening in my chest. "Let's just say I have a different plan in mind." In that moment, I could almost hear the inner workings of my heart thundering in anticipation. I would not act from a place of brokenness. I would harness my rage and tears as tools instead of restraints. Our conversation faded as I recalled the cards I had held close to my heart. My ex-college roommate, a key player in the social stratosphere, had connections that could topple even the strongest alliances in our circle. She owed me a favor, one I had earned through the years of nurturing our friendship, an investment I was ready to cash in. It was time for a reckoning, and for that I needed to feign a smile while inside, my heart raced as I envisioned my plan unfolding. But first, I had to endure the charade of this party, this temple of betrayal where Claire graced the scene with false exclamations of warmth toward me veiled in sweetness, as if we were kindred spirits instead of adversaries. I watched her prance about, oblivious to the storm brewing just out of sight, and I knew that all was not won for her just yet. A flash of anger coursed through me, igniting my determination. I would rise from this ruin, I would fashion my own vengeance, and she would become the catalyst for an exquisitely crafted downfall. Hearing my husband close by, I pulled my focus back to the present, forcing the blissful facade back into place. Suddenly, it seemed as if the string quartet was playing a score meant only for me, one of ire masked with elegance, as I prepared to weave my own song of redemption amongst the mask of laughter that surrounded me. The night was young, filled with promises of glittering backstab and betrayal. Claire and my husband, their shimmers, enticing the crowd, believed they were the stars of this narrative. Little did they know, the plot was mine to write, and penning a tale of tension and retribution was just beginning. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an amber glow over the sprawling mansion, I sat in my opulent study, the scent of leather and aged wood filling my lungs. My heart, once heavy with betrayal, now pulsed with a newfound purpose. The betrayal by the man I had once called my everything illuminated the path ahead, and realization washed over me. Love is not the only powerful currency in this world. Deception can be a masterful tool crafted from heartbreak. I opened the ornate drawer of my desk, the smooth wood cool against my fingertips. Inside lay my meticulously formulated plan, the blueprint to my revenge, a game I was more than prepared to play. I took a moment to reflect on the intricacies of my plan, each piece methodically thought out, designed to unravel the tapestry of his new life with her. the woman who had thought she slipped into the role of my greatest rival. They believed their happiness was secure, but how wrong they were. A rush of satisfaction coursed through me at the thought of turning their exhilarating love story into a tragic tale of deceit. Every detail mattered. The social gatherings where their laughter echoed through the hallways, the whispered secrets shared over champagne flutes where I would be lurking in the shadows. I imagined the reaction of my friends and family, those who adored the facade of my perfect marriage when I would unveil the truth. The relishing thought of scandal rocked the very foundation of their idyllic lives. It was poetic, really, the thrill of playing the puppet master while they danced upon strings of their own making. The first stage of the plan involved a carefully orchestrated meeting with my grapevine, the powerful alliances I had formed over the years. High society was a delicate web of secrets and alliances, and within that web I was the spider ready to ensnare my prey. It didn't take long for word to travel. My loyal confidant, Margaret, a socialite with ears voluptuous as her fortune, was eager to assist. She was the perfect ally, a whirlwind of charm and agility who could slip into any gathering unnoticed yet leave confusion in her wake. I instructed her to cultivate a narrative at the upcoming charity gala, a golden opportunity to unfurl my plan in front of an audience enraptured by gossip. Tell them, I whispered conspiratorially over lunch, our voices softened by the clink of silverware against porcelain, that Adam has been seen around town with his ex, Sophie. The whispers of their rekindled romance will only heighten the curiosity. Margaret nodded, her eyes sparkling with mischief as she understood the significance behind my words. The evening of the gala arrived, brilliantly illuminated by chandeliers, each more extravagant than the last. I donned my gown, a red satin that clung to my figure, exuding an aura of confidence and allure that I had not felt since the day my husband had walked out. In the mirror's reflection, I was not a woman scorned, I was a lioness ready to pounce. I stepped into the grand ballroom, electric with anticipation, catching glimpses of the opulent lives surrounding me. The air was thick with laughter and the sound of glasses clinking as I scanned the room for Adam and Sophie. It took but seconds to locate them, vibrant and radiant, completely caught up in their own narrative. I felt a flicker of something in my chest. Was it jealousy or mere determination? I then spotted Margaret weaving her way through the crowd, effortlessly planting seeds of doubt around the hall. I watched as her whispers became a tapestry of intrigue, beckoning more and more eyes towards my targets. Then came the calculated risk, the moment I decided to slip between the galaxies of their floating worlds. As the music softened, drawing attention away from the pairing, I made my approach. A charming smile across my lips, enchanting enough to mask the merciless storm brewing within. Adam, I called, allowing my voice to float over the ballroom like an exquisite perfume laced with intent. He turned, surprise flitting across his face like a fleeting shadow, and for a split second I enjoyed the look of confusion that danced within his azure depths. Darling, you didn't tell me you invited Sophie, I said, a casual tone drenching the undercurrent of acid in my words. The space between us thickened, the room's laughter dying down to a hushed tone as I continued. It's so sweet that you two are rekindling old flames, such an inspiring love story indeed. I watched as Sophie's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, the cracks in her confident demeanor beginning to show, while Adam's face contorted, boiling between anger and embarrassment. "Oh, is that what they're saying?" he replied, forcing a light chuckle, yet I could tell he was treading on delicate ground. "It's all in good fun." I smirked, unleashing the full weight of my intentions, the needle of his perfect life already beginning to unravel with each word that escaped my lips. Just as I had envisioned, whispers surged and enveloped us. Eyes darted, conversations lulled, and suddenly I was not the villain they were. The irony of it dawned upon me. It was not just a game of deception, it was a game of perception. Through the artful manipulation of rumors and truth, perceptions of their rekindled relationship would shatter the image they had crafted so painstakingly. With each passing moment, as I stood poised amidst the echoes of distinguished laughter and whispered scandal, a flicker of satisfaction ignited within me, firm as a flame. Oh, how sweet it was to play this game, this exhilarating dance of betrayal and revelation. I was no longer a woman scorned, but a formidable force of nature, plotting my resurgence amidst the wreckage of their unknowing arrogance. My plan had begun to unfold, and with each whisper embedded into the fabric of high society, their world would soon tremble on the brink of devastation, so elegant, so exquisite, so utterly deceptive. The air felt heavy with tension as I stood at the threshold of our once sacred space, the living room where laughter echoed like a distant memory. Each step I took seemed to reverberate with the betrayal that hung between us like a storm cloud, threatening to unleash its wrath. I could almost hear the mocking laughter of my husband's ex, the woman who had woven herself back into his life like a viper returning to its nest. Did he even realize the venom he was inviting back in? I recalled the late nights we once shared, recounting dreams and fears, building a life we thought was unshakable. Now those dreams felt like shards of glass scattered across the floor of my mind. With each fragment, my trust was shattered, as sharp and unforgiving as the very betrayal that broke me. I had confided in him, stripped myself bare, exposing vulnerabilities he claimed to cherish. But that trust had been replaced with a gaping wound, one that ached with both loss and fury. He stood across the room, the silhouette of the man I had married now distorted by the shadows of his choices. There was uncertainty in his eyes, a blend of remorse hiding behind a veneer of defiance. Could he see the flames roaring in my heart, or was he too engrossed in his own chaos to notice? "How could you do this?" The words slipped out, barely above a whisper but charged with uncontainable rage. With every heartbeat, my resolve tightened around me like a noose. I had crafted my plan in the solitude of my anguish, every detail meticulously plotted. It was no longer about reclaiming what I had lost, it was about showing him the cost of his reckless choices. The fire within me demanded justice, or at the very least, closure. The laughter I had once cherished felt like a betrayal of its own. "You don't understand," he uttered, his voice trembling as he attempted to weave a thread of justification. "She was there for me when you needed someone to fill the void. Is that what you're trying to say?" My voice climbed in intensity, cutting through his weak defenses like a knife. I had loved him fiercely, yet now I was filled with an icy determination that threatened to engulf me. "Do you think I didn't see the way your eyes lit up when she walked into a room? Did you think the shadows you danced with would drown out the light we built together?" I could see him recoiling, the force of my words hitting him harder than any blow. The mask of indifference he wore began to crack, revealing the vulnerability underneath. I took a step forward, feeling the power surging through me, fueled by my pain but driven by something deeper, a sense of agency that had long felt dormant. "You need to understand, love is not a game you juggle with your predecessor when the going gets tough. It's a commitment, a vow, and you threw ours away like it was nothing." For a moment, silence enveloped us, suffocating, heavy, yet strangely liberating. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, thundering against the walls I had built around it. This confrontation was raw, brutal, but necessary. I needed him to see the gravity of his actions, to comprehend the depths of my hurt and the realities of what betrayal had wrought. "Is that all I mean to you?" he finally asked, and beneath his bravado I could hear the cracks in his facade, the tremors of fear. "Just a bad choice." I took a deep breath, forcing my mind through the fog of emotion, unraveling the threads of memory that had woven our lives together. "You were my everything, and now I feel like a stranger in my own home, a mere spectator in our life. Your heart was a fragile anchor, and you cast it aside without a thought. You don't get to take my love and toss it aside like yesterday's news." His eyes narrowed, the flicker of defiance reigniting as he leaned forward, hardened by a need to defend himself. "I never asked you to be the victim here." "No," I shot back, the words bursting forth unrestrained. "But maybe if you had seen me as anything other than a comfort, we wouldn't be here. You cut me so deep, and yet here you stand acting as if I should just accept your lies and move on." Frustration rumbled within him. "What do you want from me? I've already made my choice." The truth of those words settled over me like a dark veil, reminding me of the futility of holding onto what had slipped through my fingers. I looked into his eyes, desperate to find a trace of the man I fell in love with, a glimmer of regret buried beneath his selfish pride. "I want you to understand what you've lost, what we had, what you turned your back on." "I didn't turn my back, you became someone I couldn't connect with anymore." A sharp intake of breath and the ache in my throat deepened. This isn't about me becoming anything. This is about what your heart chose, a broken promise, a door open to someone who never canceled the future with you. Each moment stretched like a fragile thread pulled taut, ready to snap under the weight of unspoken resolve. You made your choices, and now you'll face the consequences. The realization dawned, igniting a flame within me as the essence of my secret plan unfurled in my mind, a shadow of retribution born from love and betrayal. I would rise from these ashes anew, reclaiming my power in a way he could never fully comprehend. I would sever the ties that bound my heart to his and rebuild a phoenix rising through the chaos of shattered trust. It's unthinkable, the way the heart can twist and turn in the shadows of betrayal. One moment I was basking in what I thought was the warmth of true love, a light that had shimmered through my life's darkest corners, illuminating everything. The next moment it flickered and faded, leaving me in pitch black, a void where laughter turned to whispers and love lingered only as a haunting memory. As he walked away, hand in hand with her, the woman who once held a place in my heart, I could almost hear the shattering glass of my world. It was a beautiful tableau of heartbreak, his back to me, a facade of happiness looming large in the distance, while I stood in the rubble of a perfect life soon to come crumbling down. Yet amid the chaos, I felt something stir within me, a cold ember igniting into an all-consuming fire. This betrayal hadn't just burned my love, it had seared through my very soul, creating a sharp resolve. No longer would I be the passive observer in this twisted drama of high society intrigue. I had a secret plan, a hidden arsenal of intentions that had been quietly gestating within me while I maintained the illusion of a blissful wife. Quiet and watchful, like a lioness in the tall grass, I waited for my moment. As nights of sleepless turmoil seeped into days of restless energy, I found myself at the center of a tangled web. It was not just about revenge. No, it transcended mere retribution. This was my journey toward reclaiming my narrative, rewriting the story that I had allowed others to dictate for far too long. I had never imagined myself capable of ruthlessness, but betrayal has a way of unraveling the softer parts of your soul, exposing hidden layers of strength you never knew existed. There were whispers, of course, those little buzzing insects of high society that thrive on the sweet nectar of scandal. They all thought they knew the story, the tragic tale of the abandoned wife whose husband had dashed off with his former lover, leaving her to pick up the pieces. They pitted me as the forsaken heroine, the tear-streaked face of a broken marriage, but they had it all wrong. Beneath that surface, a tempest brewed. Beneath the politeness of high tea and the gracious facades of charity galas, I plotted my course, the storm I would unleash upon the world they had built chiseled by deceit. My unlikely partnerships began to take shape, weaving together a tapestry of those who had also suffered injustices at the hands of those who wore charm like armor. Each shared story fueled the embers of my determination, each voice a reminder that I was not alone in this fight, but rather part of a growing force. It was exhilarating, the thrill of rebellion, the intoxicating dance of high stakes. A clandestine meeting here, a casual chat there, all laced with layers of meaning and unspoken agreements. In the undercurrents of our seemingly innocent exchanges lay a deeper purpose, to expose the fragility of those we once held in esteem. And then she returned, the ex. The ghost from our past appeared as a sleek apparition at the latest charity auction, draped in elegance that only enhanced the sweet bitterness of my memories. As she navigated the lavish hall with practiced grace, I could see the glances exchanged, the facades maintained. She wore an air of triumph that stung like the sharpest dagger. Yet beneath her exterior, I detected a hint of fear, a trembling undercurrent that revealed her fragility, the cracks in her meticulously crafted image. Perhaps she thought she had won, but the truth is far more layered than any surface-winning smile can convey. As the evening progressed, our paths intersected with a tension that was almost tangible, electrifying the air around us. The eyes of our peers flickered with anticipation, gliding from her shimmering silhouette to my still, almost regal bearing. It was a pregnant pause, heavier than the finest gemstone, charged with unspoken truths and veiled threats. And I felt it, this was my moment. A battle frightening and exhilarating, full of shadowy promises and sharp reflections. In the midst of this turmoil, I could almost hear the whispers of my heart recalibrating. I was neither the unwilling victim nor the forsaken wife. I had become something else entirely, an architect of fate, cautiously manipulating the pieces on the grand chessboard of our lives. The stakes were raised with each heartbeat. I planned a confrontation, a way to pull back the curtains obscuring the truth and expose the charade woven around me. Only this time I would stand at the forefront. As my resolve solidified, the lines began to blur between obsession and empowerment. I anticipated the moment when confrontation would yield revelations. My heart raced, a drum urging me onward, while visions clouded with rage morphed into clarity. What did I stand to lose after all? It was merely the remnants of a life once reverberating with laughter, now dampened by betrayal, a life I could no longer claim as my own. The true battle would not just be against them, but also fought within me, a test of strength against weakness, love against obsession. In the eye of the storm, before chaos erupted, I understood one critical truth. This was no longer only about him or her, or even the painful legacy of lies that minute by minute unraveled around me. This was about claiming my own story, a renaissance of self amongst the debris of a shattered illusion and the dark thrill of taking back what was never stolen, for a life built on the crumbling foundations of deception could never withstand the storms. I would rise, rejuvenated by the fury of the winds, ready to seize my moment, laying waste to the remnants of their world as I forged my way forward. The narrative had shifted. I was no longer a victim, but a force to be reckoned with. And the storm was just beginning. The air was thick with tension as I stood at the center of the grand ballroom, the echo of laughter and clinking glasses a cruel backdrop to the chaos within. I watched him, Jason, his silhouette sharp against the glimmering chandeliers, laughter spilling from his lips as she stood beside him, Rebecca, the ex who had once torn our world apart. Only now, the pieces that lay scattered at my feet knew the true extent of betrayal. I could feel the eyes of the elite upon us, their hungry gazes glancing between the reunited lovers and the woman scorned me. In the swirling haze of crimson silk and expensive perfume, memories surged like waves crashing against jagged rocks, our wedding day, sun-drenched and perfect, with laughter echoing in our ears. The first time I heard him say, "I love you," every tilt of his lips igniting a fire in my chest. Those words, once a balm for my soul, now felt like ashes in my mouth. His betrayal was a knife, twisting deep and unforgiving, but I had fortified myself for this moment. I was no longer the woman who would wither into despair. I had orchestrated my return from this hell. A low murmur swept through the crowd as I made my entrance, the glittering gown I wore emphasizing every curve with a fierce femininity. I relished the stares, some whispered their sympathies while others pitied his foolishness, entangled in the allure of a ghost from the past. They all expected me to crumble, to flee from the scene with tears staining my cheeks. Instead, a new spark flickered within. The time for mourning was over. This was a battlefield, and I was armed with secrets birthed from my solitude. Then, amidst the chaos, the memories changed, morphing into a quiet determination as I recalled the nights spent alone, planning not just survival but vengeance. Conversations with old friends, alliances forged over glasses of fine wine, and shared stories of hurt and ambition. I had gathered intelligence from the shadows, piecing together the web over which I would dance. Rebecca's return was not only dramatic, it was purposeful. Yet she was naive if she thought this was simply a reclaiming of lost love. She didn't know I had been waiting for my chance to act, crafting an intricate tapestry of truth and deceit. Jason caught my gaze across the room. An instant of surprise flashed across his face before the ease of familiarity settled back in. That flicker of recognition sparked something within me, an urgency that drove me forward. I wanted to confront him, to force the consequences of his choices into the open, but instead, I breathed deeply and turned my focus outward. I moved toward the clustering shadows of familiar faces, the warmth of allies placing their hands upon my shoulders in silent support. Do you know, I overheard a society friend whisper conspiratorially with a hint of malice. He's always looking for love in the wrong places. It's a wonder he didn't realize what he was giving up. Such bitter truths unveiled their worth, and I reveled in them, an elixir for my pain. With every gossip-laden whisper, a plan, once hidden within the recesses of my heart, emerged into the light, a reckoning for both Jason and Rebecca. They believed the past was a fantasy, a story they could reshape. They were wrong. Are you going to let this happen? A friend inquired as I sipped my drink, pretending to be consumed by the spectacle before us. Let it happen, I echoed, a low, wicked smile curling my lips. No, my dear, we're not done here, not by a long shot. The words tasted sweet, a promise of what was to come. The clock struck midnight, announcing not just the passing of time, but the crescendo of my resolve. The ballroom, momentarily hushed, awaited the next act in this grand performance. Suddenly, as if scripted, I found the courage to stride forward, my voice rippling through the air like thunder, creating a rift in the ballroom's celebration. Jason, the name sliced through the noise, rich with an authority that demanded attention. He turned, a deer caught in headlights as I advanced. I could feel every pair of aristocratic eyes shift, the ambience thickening with intrigue, anticipation crackling like electricity. I didn't think you'd be bold enough to show up, he sneered, but there was an edge of uncertainty shadowing his infallibility. Bold, I countered, feigning laughter. Or simply smarter than you give me credit for. Rebecca stood, poised but visibly shaken, her confidence rendered tenuous in the face of my unyielding resolve. The fragile facade we had all constructed began to sway under the weight of undeniable truths, every calculated choice I had made leading to this moment where I could unveil my secret weapon. With clamoring hearts, I unleashed the truth, a statement dripping with a mix of betrayal and liberation. Do you really think your little reunion comes without consequences? I have some news for both of you. The ballroom buzzed with curiosity as gasps followed my proclamation, each syllable igniting whispers of dread. I've uncovered every deceit you cloaked yourselves in, Jason, every minute detail you believed I couldn't piece together. And Rebecca, darling, there's much you still don't know about him. After a pause that stretched like a taut string ready to snap, I grinned, a predator closing in on her prey. This isn't over. There's a reckoning on the horizon, and I plan to see you both face the truth. As the gravity of my words settled, the ballroom felt transformed, a crucible of intrigue where love gave way to betrayal and betrayal unfurled into reckoning. The stage was set, the curtain rising on an act that would unveil the real struggle, not merely for love, but for redemption amidst a landscape marred by deception. As I stood amidst the echoes of shattered dreams and whispered secrets, the remnants of my once idyllic life lay scattered around me like autumn leaves caught in a frigid wind. The laughter that had filled our home now felt like a distant memory, replaced instead by the suffocating silence of betrayal. My heart, heavy with the weight of loss, began to awaken to a fierce resolve. This was not the end. It was merely the beginning of something transformed, something extraordinary. I felt a pulse of determination surge through me as I surveyed the wreckage of my past life. With each breath, I inhaled the scent of burnt bridges and broken promises, and exhaled the remnants of despair that had clung to me like a shadow. I could no longer allow myself to be defined by this betrayal. The man I thought I loved had chosen the fleeting thrill of a second chance over the steadfast warmth of my loyalty. Yet if he believed he could simply waltz away unscathed, he had gravely underestimated the fire within me. In those initial days, I was enveloped by a fog of swirling emotions, rage, sadness, and an unsettling sense of loss. However, in my solitude, I stumbled upon a flicker of something drastically different. It came in the form of bitter clarity, revealing that my worth did not hinge upon the affections of another. The challenge before me was not merely to reclaim what had been stolen, but to reconstruct my identity from the ashes of heartbreak. I became determined, not out of vengeance, but rather for my own reclamation. I began to envision my life no longer as a passive participant in someone else's narrative, but as the author of my own story. Nights spent poring over strategies that would elevate me from the depths, the pages lined with aspirations to change my surroundings. Friends who had faded away in the shadows of my former life began to emerge, eager to support my resurgence. Their laughter became a balm for my soul, drawing me out of the haunting silence, reminding me of the woman I had once been: vibrant, ambitious, and undeniably fierce. With each passing day, I shifted my energies towards building a presence, not just amidst the high social circles that once defined my existence, but also for myself. I enrolled in classes intended to unlock my long discarded passions. I relished the experience of reclaiming forgotten skills, my paintbrush gliding across canvas, my soul transforming each stroke into declarations of independence. This was my rebellion against the shadows of betrayal that threatened to consume me. Courage surged within me, and soon my social life transformed. I re entered the world not as the woman spurned, but as one who had risen above. Invitations to gallery openings, charity events, and high society mixers poured in, each an opportunity to network, to assert my place as a force to be reckoned with. I began to garner respect and admiration, which fed the embers of empowerment within me. As I mingled amidst the elite once more, I found clarity in their fleeting glances and eager conversations, a woman reborn. In time, I learned that my pathways to empowerment were not singular. A pivotal realization struck me: beyond merely seeking out new opportunities, it was crucial that I also forge alliances, unexpected partnerships that could share in this journey. Behind the scenes, my secret plan began to unfold, interwoven with a growing network of women who, like me, had danced too long in the shadows of men's decisions. Each conversation, brimming with shared experiences, sparked a collective defiance, a sisterhood rooted in resilience. We began to strategize, scheming ways to uplift one another in a society notoriously thrumming with male dominance. Amongst this vibrant collection of determined women, I discovered a mentor, someone seasoned and wise in the intricate ballet of social dynamics. She taught me to wield vulnerability as strength, to wear my emotions not as a shroud of weakness, but as a badge of honor. Our discussions shifted from gossiping about the elegance or brutishness of high society to cultivating an undercurrent of ambition. We propped each other up, echoing the sentiment that we would not be defined by the decisions or actions of men, nor shackled by the chains of our pasts. It was exhilarating to watch as other women began to stand beside me, shedding their insecurities like leaves in autumn. We shared aspirations, hosting events that championed empowerment, pathways to connection, and collaboration rather than competition. In the chaotic mix of spirits, laughter blossomed anew, vibrant and unapologetic. My shambles began to coalesce into a vibrant destiny. As the weeks turned into months, the contours of a new life emerged, lit by an inner flame that threatened to explode upon our return to high society's spotlight. The very same events that once stole my joy became stages upon which I could reclaim my narrative. My ex-husband's ex was no longer a rival. She was a mere footnote in a tale that was now entirely my own to write. No longer bound to the seat of sadness, henpecked by loss, I poised myself for my triumphant entrance in that realm. So I prepared meticulously, with every detail considered and intentioned. The gathering at the annual charity gala, long a cornerstone in our social calendar and the venue where betrayal had first struck, would be my grand reemergence. The lights twinkled like stars as I stepped into the shimmering crowd, my heart racing not with fear but with vibrant anticipation. Gone was the timid woman who stood between confidence and shattered trust. Instead, I embodied strength, a testament to resilience, unyielding and impervious to doubts. In that moment, with the world watching, I understood what it truly meant to emerge from the ashes, each step echoing the promise of a new beginning. I would rewrite the narrative, my narrative, alive with ambition and sizzle, invigorated by the unbreakable threads of camaraderie forged in trials. Empowerment became not a singular moment, but an eternal flame, igniting my path forward. And as I planted my feet firmly on that revered ground, I whispered to the winds carrying the remnants of my past, "This is my time."